Oh, howdy. Welcome to another edition of Deep Space Nine and Nine-ish. I'm your host, Jeff Mader. We're finally here, guys, to the end of season 2. Let's bring in our guests here, our guest hosts, our co-hosts. First, my brother. Without further ado, my brother, Dave Mader. We'll bring him on in.
Hello, good evening.
Welcome to Deep Space Nine and Nine-ish, Dave.
Welcome to Deep Space, the end of season 2, Jeff. It's a big night.
It is.
The Dominion's here, the Jem'Hadar. It's
right.
There's a lot to break down.
The Dominion is in full force, and without further ado, let's bring in our tag team couple, Ashley and Kevin Millard. They are on standby, ready to be tagged in at any moment. That was what's south. Okay. We're talking about the Jem'Hadar until Jaemeel shows up. Okay, when Jameel's coming, he's got some rebooting issues going, much like Jake and Nog had in this episode, trying to figure out the runabout.
You could say his arrival is greatly anticipated, like Kaiopaka said.
Right
in the episode.
I tried to forget most of the Bajoran things, but okay, if you want to go there, that's okay. This episode, luckily, only references some Bajoran deaths, and that's okay. We can deal with that.
Your arrival has been greatly anticipated.
Has it? Okay. Jameel's has. Okay.
Well, Cisco. She was talking to Cisco in the scene. It wasn't Dominion.
That wasn't in this episode, was it?
No. But never mind. And Jeff, I'm
Dave's
taking you off course here. Sorry.
You're taking me off course. We're talking about the Jem'Hadar here today, Dave, but really we're talking about the fact that Cisco is getting kind of blocked by the Ferengi here with his opportunity to go on a vacation play date with his son. It was his idea. He was like, anywhere you want to go. This is kind of how the episode starts. Anywhere you want to go. Hey, Jake, what you doing? You're growing some plants? What you doing there? Maybe, that's kind of, he's like, that's pretty low tech, which I thought was a hilarious scene. I kept laughing. I was like, who wrote this? I was like, low tech. And like, he's like, what would you want to do, Jake? And he's like, I don't know, pilot a runabout, which would have come in handy if he had just taught him that. In this episode. But moving on, he goes, no, well, besides that, anything but
he goes next. Yeah, he's like, yeah, not doing that. I piloted a runabout. You're too young. But he's like, well, go to the Gamma Quadrant. And this really struck me, Jeff, because this is like the last time you can kind of take your son on a camping trip to the Gamma Quadrant, because it's no longer just kind of like this, like frontier that they don't know much about. Right. It's about to become that place is going to get a lot more dangerous and a lot of place you want to go.
This would be like landing in the New World, circa Columbus era, and be like, let's go for a camping trip in Utah. I think it'll be nice.
What happened? I don't know the history of that, Jeff, so you have to explain.
I think there'd be a lot of there's a huge Native American population. There were all like Apache. Well, there was Apache warriors in Texas, but there was also just the plains and the kill of the buffalo. It would not have been good for a camping trip. Is this kind of what they're dealing with here with the Jem'Hadar. They're camping in their grounds. It'd be like I kind of see what the Jem'Hadar are coming from, but they're kind of dicks too. They're not very nice about it.
Yeah, they could be nicer about it.
Yeah. But okay, let's get some, first thoughts, first thoughts. Kevin and Ashley Millard, first thoughts on the episode.
Well, just to go on what you were just saying there, I think the Federation is, they kind of provoke this war. Eventually, they've been told now, stay out of our space.
Right.
And they're like, no, I don't think we will.
Yeah. Dax is the one that apparently has the she have orders not to say anything like that to like a species like wouldn't that be like the job of an ambassador or an admiral to deal with that level of, hey,
Captain Keogh would not have approved of what she said potentially.
Right. You mean Joe Biden?
Joe Biden, Captain Joe Biden of USS Odyssey. And Jadzia Dax, they don't get along. Maybe even Curzon Dax, I'm not quite sure. Maybe he didn't get along with Captain Keogh.
Yeah, but then there's a moment where they say like, hey, I thought you guys didn't get along. She's like, did I say that? So she kind of like that. Well, she kind of has a little tongue in cheek, going on over there.
She has the last laugh because Captain Keogh's dead. He's blown to bits by the end of this episode.
She was not laughing.
Well, no, she thought it was sad.
Right, but we're jumping the gun here, Dave. We have more to talk about with Quark tagging along. All right, first, the best moment after we have the classic, do. We have the intro credits. We have that, and then after that, we find out that Jake must bring Nog onto this trip, and we have Jake walk into his office, Sisko's office, and tell him all about how he had every answer for Sisko, because he knew his dad would come up with something to try to get out of this, but he was Jake was like, no, his grades are suffering, and Mrs. O'Brien said that he has to come and it has to be a full partnership, and he just had left and right answers for him.
Like, I have to help my friend, don't I?
And the whole episode, I'm just like, it's Sisko going, oh fine, like because,
but it's good writing, I think, by Ira Stephen Bear here, with how he's creating a situation where Sisko would not have chosen to go on this trip, but you could imagine yourself being in Sisko's shoes here, where your kids are friends, and therefore you're having to go on a trip with the parent of the kid your kid's friends with, but you don't like that person, or you don't like, in this case, really, it's you don't like that culture. And Sisko and the Federation are exposed a little bit for their bigotry, and some of the more grayer areas of what it is to be in Starfleet and the Federation, and this kind of perfect human future.
I thought it was a great kind of metaphor for when Quark was giving Sisko the gears about the difference between human history and Ferengi history, and he goes, I think you're upset because Ferengis remind you of a time when humans were just out for money and didn't care about morality and all those type of things. And he's like, it's a reminder. And then he also says, you guys are way more responsible for terrible things, like mass murders and insurrection, slavery. He lists a whole bunch of things. He's like, Ferengi's not nearly that bad. And I was like, well, that's debatable. I mean, he's kind of.
I would like to fact check that, Quark, because
I think that's a turning point for Sisko, though, in his opinion of Quark. That speech starts it, because you see on his face, he acts it well. You see on his face, he just is kind of taken aback, but also he got a point. And then after when he's talking to the Vorta there, she says, do we have to take him along? And he just goes, he's not so bad.
He's not the only one who stands up for Quark in this episode. We also have Odo kind of give a speech to Kira about I'd rather be in my prison than in the hands of the Dominion. But he also kind of says you'd miss him, Yeah. So he's a lovable rapscallion, and they're all kind of admitting it in this episode, right?
Quark.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wrote my notes here, in this episode more than any other, I feel like they tried to make Quark a super useful member of this cast. He's a non-Starfleet member of the main cast, right? And he's not Jake Sisko. He's not attached to a Starfleet character, or even someone they're in the service with. He's a civilian. He works on the promenade. He's closer to Guinan in a lot of ways, but he's a main character, and they've incorporated him well in this episode and other episodes before, where they kind of showed that the Ferengi had established first contact with the Dominion, that they had more influence here than the Federation did, and that sort of their way of life, their culture, their government, their diplomacy is equally valid in things as much as the Federation's approach to how they explore space, which is a little bit more, we're going there. You don't like it? Too bad. We don't deal with money, or whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I know.
Yeah. But with Quark, I just think they show he's the one who figures out the collar, right? He's the one who is saying, help me, and Sisko's like, shut up, you're not helping things. He's like, what the hell are you doing? And you're kind of like, yes, Sisko, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, he's just sitting there and he's telling Quark to shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then he kind of gets like this like gleeful like I don't know, like he has this like joie de vivre, I feel like, when he's like talking to the Vorta about breaking out, and he's like, there's only one or two guards, and he's like, that's their weakness and we will exploit it, and he's got all these like, he's so like into it, and I'm just like, it's a great Cisco episode because we haven't had one really for like ever, guys, like I mean really. And
Right.
he is good in the episode, and it's kind of a turning point of like how they start using him more, I think. And especially when the best Cisco is the one with an adversary, and this episode really sets it up with that the kamikaze run into the USS Odyssey. That kind of sets they should have paused on that moment. I felt like in the episode, I felt like that moment was way too fast, where they basically, they kind of just show their initial reactions of like Dax and Bashir, and they show, I think, and then they show Cisco and O'Brien goes, there was no need to do that, like we're retreating, and Cisco says the line, what does he say, guys? He says,
They're showing us how far they're willing to go.
They're showing us how far they're willing to go, and that is really sets up the war captain that to me is what Cisco is. He's the war strategist captain. You got Picard is your explorer, plays a flute captain. Kirk is your go into a bar, punch a guy in the face and steal the girl captain. And
I object to some of these
He's the regular
classifications. Before you go any further, I don't know if you can sum up Picard as the flute playing what was he?
Explorer. He's the explorer.
He's they're all explorers. Like they're all like
yes, but the philosopher. Picard is the philosopher. So Cisco would be the general. Voyager, Janeway is kind of like the scientist, like Amelia Earhart, like type, that's kind of to me what she's based on. And who am I missing? Oh, Archer doesn't count.
I think that's very arbitrary, but he's the pioneer.
He's the pioneer. Yes, that is the art. Yes. And then who am I missing? And Kirk, he's kind of like the cowboy. Okay. He's the Wild West cowboy.
Kirk's the cowboy for sure.
Definitely.
100%.
Right. So but you couldn't say Cisco was the general captain up until this episode. Every other episode before, he is the emissary, prophet, religious.
I don't think he was ever the general. I think that's too high of a rank. I think he was, if you could call him a colonel or something, maybe a little bit more middle management. He never quite. He is and he isn't, like how they'll depict him throughout the course of the war. He is sometimes shown to be very active in the planning. Sometimes he's more of an assistant to Admiral Ross, and he's more just kind of advising him and helping him with his little part of the war. But other times he's just taking over Deep Space Nine, and he seems to be far away from the war, seemingly, and more in like dealing with the people who are retreating. So it's kind of like, I don't know, we're going to probably cover that throughout the next 5 seasons that we have left of this show to cover, but we're down 2. And from here on the Dominion will be a constant threat. This will change Cisco. You're right. Forever throughout the Cisco, like who wants to go on a camping trip here is not the Cisco we'll see throughout the next bunch of years. He's still a father, but it's like as an officer, as how he kind of feels about his job, he changes.
Yeah, I think the next episode that he's anything like this is the one where they do the Bajoran ship. Did they do that? No, that's not already happened. No.
No, you mean the one where him and Jake built the ship.
The Solar.
That's the next one where he's kind of like the only one that comes to mind anyway, where he's more like, let's go on a camping trip, and
it's like, hey Jake,
let's go on an adventure.
It'll be great.
Yeah.
But I feel like he doesn't change as a dad, but he does change as an officer. Like his whole assignment here, the whole thing of like, get Bajor into the Federation, and I'm the emissary, and I got to do this stuff. And he, like just watching a couple episodes ago, he just never felt like he was into this. Like, you know, what his main kind of assignment was here.
In these next seasons, this is when he finally sort of is in the show. He's barely in the show up until this point.
Yes,
Yeah.
like it's been forever. The last Cisco centric episode I think we had was the one where the girl was dead or she was a ghost or
Shadow
whatever.
play.
Shadow play. That was the last
Okay.
one.
That was 10 episodes ago.
That's a while ago, you know. So
Well, the Maquis is he's pretty heavy in the Maquis.
he is, but that's not a
That's him and Cal Hudson. It just wasn't successful.
that episode sucks too. Like that episode.
It's a two-parter.
Okay,
you
so
know,
it's been episodes since we had one that was decent.
You know,
I think the fact is that Cisco has not shined in his own show up until this point.
and I don't think he had a reason to. I think originally when the show was started, they really wanted to lay into the Bajoran prophet emissary stuff, and I think at a certain point they were like, "That's stupid. We can't lay on it that heavy because people will tune out."
Not all the
You know?
time.
And
It's not that interesting. It's
Right.
kind of like you have to kind of figure out your hierarchy of plots.
But there was a debate amongst the Star Trek producers and writers, especially when TNG ended, whether or not Star Trek could do war, because Gene Roddenberry, did not want intergalactic war. He didn't want it to be Star Wars. It was supposed to be more about exploration, and there was a little bit of it with the Klingons and stuff, but it wasn't supposed to be it wasn't supposed to be the focus of Star Trek, right? And so Deep Space Nine, I think, had to kind of toe the line, when they decided to go this Dominion route they knew they were going to eventually go, I think, with war and have Klingons. The graphics in this episode too, guys, by the way, I think also opened their eyes that they could do that. Like what year when's the air date of this episode?
This is June 12th, 1994. And I think it's worth noting that the special effects do take an upgrade here.
Yes.
And they because up until this point, like even in Next Gen, they never really did much in terms of space battles, and the stuff they did do was pretty kind of basic. Like they'd show you sometimes, but then other times it'd just be like, hey, we're firing over there. And they just tell you what's happening outside, this cool space battle you're kind of missing. This is kind of showing it more. This is showing the ships moving and flying around in a way I don't think we'd really gotten a lot of. And, even a season later from now, we know we'll get like the Way of the Warrior, the big Klingon battle that's yet to come. So this feels not as impressive in contrast, but at the time, this was pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, think about this. This is 1994. I mean, what movie, the best movie with special effects that came out at that time would have been Terminator 2 or around then, right? Or that's a little earlier, right? 91.
It's like 2 years before that. You're talking the year that Generations came out. You're talking about the year that Forrest Gump came out.
Right.
Shawshank Redemption.
But as far as on television special effects, I mean, Star Trek had to have been one of the best. Nothing, way better than Babylon 5.
Well, it had 3 times the budget of Babylon 5, Jeff.
So 3 times as good.
Babylon 5 did some very impressive stuff, and they did with computer-generated models, which are now upgradable. So it actually has all this remaster potential.
Oh, I think Dave is frozen.
What?
We can't hear what he's saying.
Okay, moving on with Deep Space 99ers, guys. Over to the tag team couple.
What was the best special? Like, how does this compare to other TV shows at the time? You're talking like X-Files era. You're talking other science fiction shows at the time. This is pretty big.
It's up there. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's really up there.
And
this particular episode for this year.
I don't think because these special effects were made by the Star Wars people. I just don't think Star Trek, and probably rightfully so, they don't get the credit that maybe for the time period. I think, you'd be hard pressed to find better special effects, I think.
Yeah, but aside from the special effects, Jeff, I want to get back to your point of what was the criticism of this being about war and what does that mean and sort of this whole thing. And I think that Next Gen, and it was always in Star Trek, but I agree it's not the sole focus of Star Trek. Deep Space Nine made it a major part of their show.
Yes,
And I think that's fine because Deep Space Nine is one among the sibling of Star Trek shows. And I think for them to have a particular focus on it, I think is okay because that's just kind of what Deep Space Nine is. I don't think I want every Star Trek show to be that, to be about this is the next war and this is what we're going to tell you about it. Like, it's
what they're doing right now.
Well, yeah, like just that's what Discovery like jumped into like with, right? They're like, you like war, right? You like Game of Thrones, you like houses, political. We're like, I guess, like they were throwing all this kind of tropes at us, like hoping, and then it largely didn't work. But I think that it can be in Star Trek, but it shouldn't be all about Star Trek. A lot of them, I think, in terms of like the movies, I'd say that maybe too many of them are war focused or a little too militarized and stuff like that, but that's fine. Like, I think it's part of just the nature of space, and I think that the whole war and everything Deep Space Nine did changed kind of Star Trek as a franchise because it made it like in terms of video games and all these other things.
If we hadn't gotten the war stuff with Deep Space Nine and they didn't realize that Star Trek fans did like some of that stuff, would we have gotten First Contact as a movie?
Well, yeah, because like I don't know if the studio wanted to do like a horror movie for a Star Trek movie, but they did do that basically.
I think they knew if they wanted to make a Star Trek movie, they wanted an action movie, and I think like making Star Trek more exciting, action orientated, I think had to be a directive of production at the time as much as they could but knowing that like Rick Berman's always gonna be like saying like, don't make it Star Wars, don't make it Star Wars, right? Like keep it true. And I think that they do. They're very true to this universe that they've set up in Next Generation into this show and also with Voyager, and they'll have their own stuff happening with the Borg and all of that.
Right. And what happened to that universe, Dave? Because it's gone.
No, it's not gone. It's still here. It just looks a little different.
We're palling around on the Star Trek Discovery in like the 37th century.
32nd century. That's in the future.
Oh my God, I was close.
You're right in the ballpark. And in the right millennia.
Oh God. Just give me my old Nordiques. That's all I want. I'll take stories about Bajor. I don't care.
Well, what do you feel?
Deep Space Nine walked a good line with this because the war, yes, it was a major part, but it wasn't every episode. There were breaks.
The great thing,
there was non-war episodes.
Yeah, that's what was great about Deep Space Nine is like one episode they could do an episode about how Sisko's the emissary, and in the next episode they do about O'Brien being an undercover Irish agent or something. And then the next episode, they're going to do like Bashir, and Section 31. And then the next episode, they'll do a war, big war, Jake and Bashir episode where they're, in the infirmary, like there's just they just go all over the place, Season 9. And that's why I think it's the most eclectic of the series, from episode to episode.
Yeah, I agree. It's like it's super strong.
And I think maybe the Bajoran stuff wasn't really flying because by this time, most of the people watching Star Trek, or at least a good portion of them, I think were either were either atheists or at least secularists, and they were just bored with the religious stuff and the religious stories.
I'm not like, I'm a history student and I studied religions and stuff, but yeah, I can't take it too much of it. That's the problem. Like even when I study it in history, it's just, it gets to a point where like, God, I can't take it much
even
more.
When they die well for our spiritual people.
Yeah, but you know what? It's a great device to tell a lot of different stories and metaphors, and that's what they use the Bajorans for. Like, what did you guys make of that moment tonight when the Jem'Hadar basically spits at Kira's feet and goes, "Yeah, we killed a bunch of Bajoran in the colonies in Gamma Quadrant. Just, they fought well for a faithful people or something like
spiritual
that.
people."
Spiritual people. Yeah.
I heard they fought well for spiritual people. He was really intimidating, I thought.
I like that scene. I thought that scene was excellent.
Third Talat Kalan. Here he is.
You believe he's scary.
He's the first Jem'Hadar we meet on screen, right? He's the first. This is the makeup that will carry through. It never really deviates too much. You get variations.
The nose changes a bit.
Yeah.
And they changed the gammas and the alphas.
The alphas are
changed.
different. The ones that were from the Alpha Quadrant later in the war.
Yeah, they look like they have a different pattern.
They are different. Yeah.
I can't wait till we see the episode where Jackie Childs plays the Jem'Hadar.
Is that this isn't him, right?
No, it's a different episode, but it's yeah, Jackie. You never know what was him. You know,
From Seinfeld.
from Seinfeld. Yeah.
We always you know, take a drink if you have a Seinfeld reference here on D Space 9 at 9.
Okay, I can do that.
Well, I don't have a drink, but there's also if you have a Babylon 5 reference or a Seinfeld.
No, we don't need to do Babylon 5. I mean, we can just leave it there. Yeah,
So, actually aren't in for either of this. But yes, third to Kalani killed them all.
I think they had the idea for the Jem'Hadar a little earlier. I think they kind of waited to kind of workshop it, and that's why I think that scene comes across so intimidating, and why they had the Vorta already laid out, and they had the circle.
Yeah.
They had like the way their prison system kind of was, which kind of carries through to another episode later on with Bashir and Martok and Worf.
Although he is missing his white tube.
They are mentioning the Catcher so well. Wait, yeah, that's true. They hadn't come up with that yet, I guess.
Yeah.
So that might be in the double F with Jeff. Fun facts ahead.
Yes, but
Okay.
But yeah, like
Spoilers.
the whole thing with them and this new like I don't know. I don't think I saw this at the time. In 1994. I don't think I saw this till later.
Well, you were 11.
But did anyone see this fresh? Like,
I did.
do you
I
remember
saw this whole. I watched this start to finish
when it was happening?
when it was happening. Yeah,
Right. And so how did you feel about this episode at the time?
it was exciting. I
Yeah.
couldn't wait for the next season. Like it
Yeah.
because I was starting to fade on this show.
Mm-hmm.
We had just finished TNG, and this show still had not lived up to TNG at all.
No,
And
yeah,
so
no.
I was really excited. I felt like the same way I feel about Discovery now is how I felt about the end of this episode. It was just exciting. What's coming next? I can't wait.
Okay, so Dave, what season is it? Season 2 or season 3 when the cliffhanger happens in TNG with the Better of Both Worlds? Is that the end of season 2 or the end of season 3?
End of
The
season
end
3.
of season 3.
Right. So to me, like that's this isn't as good as that, obviously.
No.
But Kevin is saying that he had a similar response, that he was excited for the next season at the time.
Also, I like this episode because it goes from even in the episode, it goes from like a quirky, fun episode to something really serious. In that,
It does, yeah. And that's a great point. That and that's what I think D69 does really well, because you're right, Kevin. At the beginning of the episode, I'm laughing at Cisco and his misfortune with Nog coming along, and then Quark's coming along, just
Yeah.
and Quark's just trying to get his stuff sold across the monitors in the station, and you already it's already a futile.
Complaining about bugs.
Right,
You're like, this is the finale. This is where they're going for the last episode.
Right.
They're going on a camping trip.
right.
Jake.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Yeah, why Jake hasn't been in an episode in like 5 episodes straight.
No, way more than that.
More?
He hasn't been on the show since probably since Shadowplay.
You're probably right. And he doesn't look that much older than his last episode.
He's got better clothes. They're finally giving him a shirt that looks like a real shirt.
He probably asked, like, if we're gonna, make Avery wear the ridiculous shirt, and can I get the better shirt?
That's not in. That's not in Fun Facts with Jeff. Did Sirach Lofton, was he like, I am not being on this show again until you give me a proper shirt?
Yeah, it's got one of these onesies that have like weird patterns at the top. Like
No more teal and yellow onesies. We're done.
Like, this is what civilians would wear. This is what kids wear in the 24th century. They think it's cool. You're like, no kid thinks this is cool.
He's like,
Come on.
my uncle Sonny Lofton says that ain't cool.
I want a real shirt.
He's like, that's not what we wear on the baseball field. Okay.
Let me wear a baseball. Okay,
Yeah, well, that's a baseball reference. That's an upcoming tease for Fun Facts with Jeff. Double F.
Jambalaya.
Jambalaya.
What?
I love when Jake says, you're gonna love it. He's like, and I'm just thinking, no, he's not.
You're gonna love jambalaya. And then about the whole bugs. Bugs. We only eat Ferengi bugs.
Ferengi bugs. That was the best. Quark's great this episode because like you said, Kevin, he's really good at making you laugh, and then all of a sudden, like he's great at like breaking down the dramatic scenes when he needs to do it. Especially like what we were talking about earlier when he's kind of telling Cisco off.
Well, he saves the day. He saves Cisco. He picks the lock, and he figures out that Vorta is a Vorta is not on their side.
Right. And I think that I think that goes a long way with the way Cisco and Kira look at Quark going forward as well. Like, I think this episode sets up the fact that they think Quark is this criminal and he can't be trusted and he's not really an ally. And I think in this episode, they find out that he is an ally to them, and that he's like, yes, he's a swindler, but he's just out for profit. He's not really a bad person.
Right. He's not a hero. The rest of them are heroes, right?
Yeah. Well, in their minds, they're heroes. But Quark puts it to him, I think, quite well that you look down on our way of life as if it's worse, and it's maybe not. Maybe in some ways it's better, and it's a good point. Like, and that's a metaphor for a lot of different way cultures look at. Like the way maybe like the American culture might look at, any other country, or even itself, Yeah,
that is kind of what the Americans are wrestling with right now. Is kind of how to even tolerate their own people.
Well, like the one question where Quark goes like, if Jake were to want to marry a Ferengi girl, would you be okay with that? He's like, I haven't thought about it.
Exactly my
and
point.
He's like, it's not gonna happen. Jake only dates 30-year-old strippers. Like that's
the best part is when he nails him on name a Ferengi you like, and Cisco looks way up in the air and has to think for a good second, and he goes, exactly my point. Like, I nailed you there.
Yeah,
you can't even think of a Ferengi you like. It would.
Yeah, that's also another great question that he poses to. Yeah, he can't even, because there's really, how many Ferengi do we even know on the show so far? We know Rom, we know Quark, we know Nog, we know.
I think Quark does deserve some criticism here, because he's like really pissed off that basically that Nog is looking up to Cisco, and this whole thing where Nog will go on this journey to become a Starfleet cadet and then officer, and Quark's kind of shitting on him throughout all of that. And is not for it. I think Quark is not perfect, and he's that is definitely one of his major flaw if he has one.
All right. Okay. So it's kind of like, so the moment happens where Cisco and Quark are kind of just hanging on the campfire, and Nog and Jake are somewhere else. And then the Vorta lady runs up, and then she does this like white burst power that's telekinetic or whatever, and like knocks Cisco out.
The Vorta is never shown doing this again.
Yeah, so I guess they were like, "This is stupid," so we'll get rid of that.
Could they all do it? Could all Vortas do this because it was shown this once?
I think according to your canon, has to in the show.
Maybe they could just bring another canon reference and say, "Well, it's only that Vorta. She was a special Vorta." You just have to explain it with one line of dialogue.
Yeah, but it hasn't been. And
no, I hate when they do that. Just never mention it again. It's fine.
Yeah. But I'll be happy when they say, well, remember that time? And it was very confusing.
Dave needs the answer. So go back and rewrite it.
Yes, they can. But it hurts. So they don't. Let's just go with that.
It does hurt.
But what I was getting to was I just love the moment where Quark goes like, it's just the two of us, and it's not just the two of them. which you think would have, like, I thought he did that because he was making sure that Nog and Jake would be safe. But then later on, they're talking about Jake and Nog willy-nilly around the Vorta. They didn't even like suspect to think maybe, they shouldn't do that, or But either way, somehow Jake and Nog get away after they kind of go on like a little adventure to figure out where Sisko and Quark went. But then they get away and they beam up. And then, like, kind of like, what did you guys think of that moment where, like, they're trying to figure out how to, reprogram the Rio Grande, right back here, the Rio Grande.
The Survivor.
And they're unplugging things, and then there's a ship approaching. What did you think of that moment? The future Starfleet officer Nog going, fire phasers, fire everything.
It's not his best moment, yeah.
Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
No. I forgot what I was going to say.
I like it, but I wonder if this the excitement of this episode is what made him choose Starfleet.
Right.
And choose to do this. Like, I know that they explain it. He joined Starfleet because he doesn't want to waste his potential like his father did. But is this why he chose Starfleet, not just something else? Because this was exciting. Even
maybe I like at some point he starts looking up to Sisko because he sees Sisko as sort of this ability to get to untapped potential or whatever you want to call it. Being more than what your some of your parts. I don't know how else to say it, but to aspire to be more the human way of life. So he does admire some aspects of humans
and my human values.
Yes.
I love when Nog starts drinking root beer. That's my favorite. And
I love when Garrick is explaining root beer. It's like it's like the Federation.
But this moment, Jeff, when the Odyssey approaches the runabout and you see it through the window, this is one of my favorite moments in all of TV Star Trek.
I have a question for you, Dave. Do you think they planned for that to be the Enterprise, that Joe Biden was supposed to be Jean-Luc Picard, and the black guy that was the first officer, he was supposed to be Riker? Like, is that what you think? Because I kind of feel that way.
Well, the way you worded it to me is kind of strange, but I will say this, Jeff, that yes, I think that they picked the Odyssey Galaxy class ship. They knew that they were like, this is how they're going to create the threat, that this Dominion took out a ship that looks just like the Enterprise. This is like a week after All Good Things Must End, right? Like, this is right after the finale. This is coming up on, we'll see the Enterprise D destroyed in Generations a couple months after this too.
So they could. Do you think they always wanted to destroy this ship at the end of the episode? Therefore, that idea was never.
I think that there was something weird about, like, Ira Stephen Bear wants to blow up. He wants to not be next gen anymore. How many times did he blow up the Enterprise? He always blows it up.
Do you think that this is a metaphor for blowing up the TNG model show? They literally blew up the ship.
I think a little bit. Yeah, I think that just in the same way that Next Gen wanted to distance itself from original series as much as they could. Like, this is DS9. DS9 is always trying to get itself away from Next Gen, and they'll blow up the Odyssey here. Then they'll blow up many more like it. During the course of the war, you'll see a lot of them just be blown up in an instant, because that's how they're creating their stakes of their show is more even bigger, because I think in each spin-off, each iteration of a show, don't you have to raise the stakes? Don't you have to make it more exciting, or at least something new?
You need to make it not more exciting, but you need to change direction.
Yeah, it needs to be different for sure.
Well, that's why Next Gen was so
similar, but it needs to be its own thing. It can't just be a rehash of what we've already had.
Right, like, unless you're gonna rehash the show, like if they brought back a Deep Space Nine show, then that would be fine. But if they brought back a new Star Trek show that was set on a space station and there's Bajorans, and it'd be like ridiculous. It's like, this is a little too, So, that's kind of why I think Discovery is the way it is and Picard is the way it is, because those shows don't want to be the old shows,
That's just fine, but the new show has to be good.
Yeah, it just has to. Yeah.
More than anything with those new shows, that TV has changed.
Right.
Like just TV in general is different.
Look at like Game of Thrones, right? Like they've been trying to do spin-offs like 3 different times, and then we haven't seen one yet, because like kind of what Dave was saying though, like if you bring a new show, you better make sure it's good, because people are going to watch it at first, and if it's not any good, they're going to dump it.
Yeah.
Right, and you can hurt your franchise, right? You can make your property weaker because now it's diluted. It's got too much crap. No, I don't know what they're doing these days. And now, like a lot of franchises, like I think, if you want to go to extreme example, one would be like Power Rangers, where they were like, they just kept spinning off, which was their model in Japan. But
yeah,
what's that?
I said, or Star Wars.
Star Wars.
I thought it was Star Wars too. I also thought, you could argue about, it's right now Star Trek, like it's
it's going that direction it was anyway.
It's going that direction where there's too much kind of like there's there's already 3 shows on television right now. Discovery, Picard, and Lower Decks. I mean, and they're adding more.
And Strange New Worlds is starting
that's full
principal photography tomorrow.
There was never 4 Star Trek shows on at the same time ever.
But it's different now. It's a different era.
I think they're, at least with a couple of them, they're finding their way.
Mm-hmm. Like, and we got the new one coming with Janeway with a Nickelodeon, right? And so, it's an exciting time for Star Trek compared to this particular era from the Jem'Hadar, where they were in such like this like new frontier, like how taking Star Trek into the franchise territory. They were the franchise pioneers, Jeff. Right? They were like, okay, we're gonna blow up the Odyssey, and we're gonna have Joe Biden, who's gonna be, I think he's a little bit reminiscent of a Picard. You could imagine he went to the academy the same year as Picard.
His acting though, by the way, when the ship is being like he's like, what should we do? Deploy teams. Okay. And he's like, how's it going? He's kind of like standing like this and things are shaking. I don't know. His whole scene I thought was kind of, it was
the bridge scene is not good.
It's really not good.
Officer, you just go, no wonder they got blown up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were never coming back, those guys, for like for another episode.
And I think it was convenient that they wrote that because Dax says to him, I hope you're going to evacuate your non-essential personnel, right? All to the station. Would the Enterprise have done that? Like, I don't think they would have.
Would Guinan have hung out on the station?
Yeah, like, Guinan, you stay here while we go to the Gamma Quadrant.
Not good enough, damn it. Not good
enough, Guinan. And it would but so especially when they say that, like, okay, we're dropping off all the civilians, so we know that no children got blown up with the Odyssey. I guess that makes it better, or makes it more palatable for TV. Maybe they had to do that for TV. I don't know, but
I don't know. I didn't even catch that line, Dave, so I didn't even think about it.
But it was clear they were never coming back.
No, they sucked. I mean, they were not interesting at all. Even the scene with Joe Biden on the station was weak. Like, it was, of all the scenes that kind of sucked. It was like when he was around, and I was like, geez, I just thought they could have got somebody like a little bit more with a little more charisma.
Kevin, when we did this episode back in December of 2020, we did you played Captain Keo.
He even looks like Joe Biden.
What's that?
He even looks like Joe Biden.
I played him. That's how boring he is.
Oh, and I was
you were his first officer. Yes. You got blown up together on that ship. Yeah.
Well, we are the
R.I.P.
He seemed
tag team couple.
That was the tag team. I thought the first officer was pretty good. I thought he did his job very well. I thought I thought Joe Biden might have had dementia. I thought he might not, maybe he should not have been in charge.
You always think Joe Biden has dementia. You've been going on.
Well,
About
that's a whole other separate issue. This Joe Biden, I think, has something going on.
Yeah, he wasn't like a particularly alert captain.
No.
He was, you know.
No, and like Picard would have been like solving problems and asking questions and figuring things out, and he would just like they literally like put him on the soundstage, shook it, and they were like, just be like, deploy teams.
Well, that's why Captain Keogh did get his own show. There was no show. There was no Star Trek Odyssey.
Today,
Odyssey.
Dave, today Captain Keogh would have his own show.
His own show. You think that's the state of Star Trek right now? That's how we'll judge quality. What Star Trek captain, like non-main show captain, would have a show?
He's the Captain Pike of Deep Space Nine.
The Captain Pike.
No, Captain Pike is way better than Keogh.
Yeah, Captain Pike's way above Captain Keogh.
I mean,
Captain Keogh didn't do anything.
Captain Keogh had a long storied career.
We don't know anything about Captain Keogh's career. He may have been a terrible captain.
He might have been.
He's kind of old. Why isn't he an admiral? Probably because he's not great.
He did get everybody killed.
Yeah.
Except the runabouts. I love the big ship. The big ship's coming in.
But not the huge ship.
And then like Odo and Dax were like taking some heavy fire at one point, and they were like, "Get out of there! We'll handle this." And then Kira comes in and her little runabout. I'm like, okay, like.
Also, it just dawned on me that all of the people that Captain Keogh said doesn't have battle experience all made it back. He didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was giving them shit. He was like, "You guys, I expect some teeth from the Dominion." Oh, yeah, they bit you.
Yeah. Right in the deflector shield, and that's not a good place to be bit.
But how do you not have like a defense against this? Like, because I imagine Klingons and other species they fought over the centuries have done this to Starfleet ships before.
I think what happened was their defenses were down because their nacelle was leaking, and then
but they couldn't. They saw them coming for like a couple seconds at least. There was no escape pods launched, nothing.
Yeah.
Couldn't beam anybody off the ship. Couldn't save one of those people.
Couldn't use a tractor beam to deflect it, like in the episode.
Teams.
Like in the episode.
I don't know.
Remember the episode of TNG where the ships come in and they use a deflector and then that doesn't work, and it goes in a loop.
I always think about all the people who are down in the lower decks. What are they doing? Is there no one whose job is just to look out the window and go, "Hey,
I think
let's get out of here"?
That's what Boimler and those friggin' idiots do.
Now we have lower decks, and we find out what's happening on the lower decks.
They're cleaning up, the hologram, the holodeck.
The holodeck, and yeah.
Which on Deep Space Nine would be way grosser than on the ship, but
yeah.
Right. Like, what do you think about the Dominion ships themselves, Jeff?
I think the ships are cool. Like, there's no purple species. Like as far as
given that they're like light highlights or have the purple color, which gives them sort of a distinct.
Yeah, nobody else.
The Romulans are green, and the Klingons are kind of reddish green, and
the ships do remind me kind of like cockroaches or something, though.
Yes, they're like bugs.
Yeah. But they're awesome. I love
But they're not the good
Jem'Hadar
Ferengi
ships.
bugs.
Yeah,
No.
different bugs.
Different bugs. It's not the good ones.
Jem'Hadar bugs.
It's not the delicious Ferengi bugs.
Right, because the captain's yacht couldn't launch. They couldn't do anything, Jeff. There was nothing but they
couldn't separate the ship. Why didn't they do that earlier? Separate the ship, and then use the saucer to protect, the Rio Grande.
Right. How do any of those runabouts escape with their lives? Is the better question. But it's
yeah. I think it's like it seemed like the Jem'Hadar had this whole plan where they were going to let this Vorta go back and spy, and they were like, "This one ship will come, and that's the one ship we will make sure we destroy."
Right, because they have the Vorta. That's why they have to let them get out of there. But they blow this up as a statement.
Right. So if they put that Vorta onto the Odyssey. That would have been much smarter.
Yes. Then,
Mhm.
well, if you want to talk about just collateral damage and saving lives, yes. Because if the Vorta was on that ship, they wouldn't have blown it up.
But a Rio Grande could have like avoided a Jem'Hadar ship coming at them.
Yeah, I just think this whole move by the Dominion is quite the statement. Now they have the teeth to back it up, and and sort of how they will approach this. I think we're gonna have to get into that. Like, how do you react to this moment? What is the appropriate response?
Well, it's very much like, the Japanese in World War II when they would fly their planes into boats. It's very much like, what do you do after that? I guess you realize your enemy is irrational.
Right. Well, if you're, and are you immediately at? Obviously, they're not immediately at war with the Dominion over this. Although this is a pretty big incident that creates hostilities. Plus the destruction of New Bajor and all the other ships they say that they've blown up. So they go, okay, well, they're like, we don't like anybody coming to our side of the wormhole. But then the Dominion is like, well, no, that's not even good enough. We actually want to just conquer you too. And everyone's like, nope, we don't want to do that. I guess so. The whole thing, where am I going?
I blame Dax for this whole thing when she told the Jem'Hadar, you think we're just not going to come back to the Gamma Quadrant? I think this whole thing, it's our fault. All these deaths are on her hands. So.
Well, you could also say that, but it was the savior of this whole show is Odo, right? Because he'll ultimately be the one who kind of is able to bridge the gap between the Dominion and the Alpha Quadrant.
Which we have a great moment at the end of the episode, Dave, where the Vorta, like they confront the Vorta, and she says, you have no idea what's going on, and she says that right after she looks at Odo, and she's talking to Odo, so she would know. Hopefully, I mean, that he was a founder. So it was kind of like a little Easter egg, maybe, even if it wasn't, they didn't know at the time, it's, maybe a happy coincidence that kind of worked out.
Because he doesn't go on the mission, right?
I think by this time they probably knew what they were going to do with
Odo
species.
Yeah.
Because we find out
Odo, but they knew what they were going to do with his species.
Right. At this point, yes. But he doesn't go on the mission, does he? Is he on one of these
no. Yes, he is. No, he is. He is.
Oh, yes.
He is. He's with Dax. He's with Dax.
Yeah.
And they're taking heavy fire. They're on the what's it, the Chinese sounding one.
Yes, the
Yahtzee?
No, the other one.
Yingxi.
Yingxi. Yeah, that one.
Something like that, yeah.
The Yangji?
The Yangji. Yeah, they're on that one.
I wonder what the difference is between the Dominion and the Romulans and the Klingons. Why does the Federation respect the borders of the Klingons and the Romulans, but not the Dominion?
Well, I think that's a good question, because I don't think that they always necessarily did, and I think that's why they had wars with the Klingons.
They didn't know
on
what
some level.
They didn't really know that Dominion had all that territory.
No, they didn't know anything about it. They didn't know they were invading a territory at all.
Right,
but then they
found out, they were like, well, fuck you. We're coming anyway.
They did do that. That's true. Well, Dax said that.
Dax's response, you're right. Maybe she should not. She gets promoted, right? Like by this within a season of this. I don't think she should get promoted for what she said.
Well,
it's not just that. It's not just her. They still sent ships and stuff through the wormhole. She doesn't command all of Starfleet.
Okay, and can we talk a little bit about like how the Dominion has like this superior technology? Like we have a few instances in this episode where they beam onto the station and then O'Brien puts the guy in the containment field. That doesn't work. He just walks right through it. And then the other moment is when Joe Biden's like, "Oh, the Polaron beam. We've tried all the frequencies. Nothing's working."
Yeah, well, because they're from the other side of the galaxy, and it's completely plausible that you know nothing about their technology, and they got stuff you don't, and so they are a little different.
You have stuff they don't.
But we've seen that before in Star Trek, the Borg.
Yeah. it's stuff in a lot of the
Borg
races that
Borg have easily defeated some Starfleet technology in TNG.
yeah, we saw like in like the Delta Quadrant when they show up there with Voyager that the Talaxians don't have transporters and they don't have certain technology that the Alpha Quadrant doesn't. It just the Gamma Quadrant seems the Dominion in particular. The other species of the Gamma Quadrant don't seem to be particularly advanced, but the Dominion is.
Yes.
But it's almost they're almost like a clandestine, almost secret empire in some ways. Like they're not as overt. It doesn't feel like it, right? Like in the
at the beginning, it doesn't feel like it, but then as soon as the war starts, it seems like the founders are intimately involved in everything.
Yeah, and the Dominion is present and has more of a distinct border. It feels like even when you enter, you cross over the wormhole. You're not immediately in Dominion space, right?
No.
You're in some kind of like adjacent area that's kind of nobody's area.
It's the anomaly, Dave.
They call it the anomaly on their side. It's not a wormhole. They don't like worms.
They don't like holes.
Or holes, yeah.
They don't
Okay.
like
Have we said what we needed to say for this episode?
One last question. The name, the Jem'Hadar. Don't know where it comes from. I don't know if that's changeling speak or who made up that word. I don't know. Like we find out that, but would you like it? Do you like the name? Like this?
It sounds like almost like Arabic or like Turkish. I don't know.
I think it's excellent. I even like the apostrophe.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way it looks and the way it sounds.
Me too.
Was the font good?
Well, it depends on what it's written in.
Yeah, that's variable. The Jem'Hadar. They might even send in the Jem'Hadar. It's pretty. It's mean sounding, you know. And they have this crazy mean makeup too.
Yeah.
But no ladies.
No ladies.
Sexist.
And nobody over 14.
Nobody, and they're all growing up in minutes. Okay, they're ageist, sexist, all kinds of things. We don't like the Jem'Hadar. They're drug addicts.
Hey, don't hate. Don't you know? They have a problem. They have an addiction. It's not their fault.
Wow.
Some of them even try to get over it.
It's a disease.
That's true.
Okay, I won't be slagging on the Jem'Hadar. They're good people. Just genetically engineered killing machines who are devoutly obsessed with their gods. They're who are the ones who created them, the changelings, and serve them in their evil empire. But hey, Jeff.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us some double F?
Double F with Jeff. Double F with Jeff. Fun facts ahead. Okay. All right, fun facts ahead. This is another edition of Double F with Jeff. Rounding out season 2. Okay, the original script mentions the Jem'Hadar shroud is similar to that employed by the Tosk. It also notes the Tosk were engineered as a gift to the Hunters as a reward for their loyalty to the Dominion, thus establishing the Hunters and Tosk were both Dominion members. Robert Hewitt.
So that they are?
Robert Hewitt Wolf confirms this connection, Dave, so you can rest easy. It is canon.
All right. That's exciting. I learned something new about canon.
That's
Thanks, Double F.
Double F with Jeff coming at you.
Yeah, his name isn't Double F, it's just Jeff.
Yeah, Double F is the fun facts. This is the only time in the series.
The fun fact.
Oh, okay.
It's the only time in the series where the Vorta used their telekinetic powers because they were bullshit and nobody cared. Okay. This is the last episode to feature the 2360s comm badges from the Next Generation and the first 2 seasons of D9. Dave, they have retired the very important old comm badges. Can you give us a picture of the old comm badges? Show us Joe Biden.
I don't have a picture of Joe Biden at the ready. One sec. Let me see if I have one of the comm.
It's the one with the little gold circle behind.
I know it. Like here, you can see it here a little bit on Cisco's shirt.
Yeah, the gold circle behind.
If I go big here.
Yeah.
Like it's. I understood why they retired it. It was like next gen. It was the next gen communicator, and now the next gen's over. This was the last time, really, the time to end it. So and then they bring in the new one that will be with the other thing. Like, I like this comm badge quite a bit. I wish I had one here to show you, like to hold up, but I don't. But it's like, it kind of looks like the Federation's oval thing, but it's a gold thing. But then they go to it's a sleeker look. The new one that they get after this is better. I think it's less clunky. It's not as like this big hunk of thing that hangs there. It's way thinner and way more lower profile. So, but they'll keep that through all of the 2370s and 2380s, it appears.
Okay, that was too much that I wanted on the comm badge, but thank you.
Wanted a picture.
Okay. The trade negotiations to which Quark refers began back in the Rules of Acquisition episode, which was the first episode to mention the Dominion. Ira Stephen Bear has said that this was an intentional way of hinting at future events in an otherwise inconsequential episode. There was also an indirect reference in Sanctuary to the Dominion invasion of Skria. So, So Dave, and the tag team couple, is this kind of like Marvel, like dropping Easter eggs? Were they ahead of their game?
I guess so. It would seem so.
Yes, I think absolutely. I don't think Star Trek gets enough credit for how well it did at creating a connected universe on TV and in movies, way ahead of other franchises doing it. Way ahead of Star Wars.
And I don't think it's a coincidence that Kevin Feige is a big Star Trek fan. So much so,
it is at all. I think that the fact that we saw those signatures at the end of Endgame showed that they were paying homage to what Star Trek had already done, and Star Trek didn't have the fan base at the time that made it as that comparative to Marvel now, but they're using a lot of those same techniques and influences.
Yeah, because they're fans. Yeah, for sure. Quark mentioned selling Vulcan IDIC pins. Gene Roddenberry originally created the pins so that he could make extra money selling them.
The Vulcan Edict, you mean?
The Edict pins, yeah.
Yeah. So Jeff, I got a set of stickers today from Amazon for $4. It was one was of the Vulcan Edict, which is the thing, and Jane goes to me, "What's that?" And I go, "It's the Vulcan Edict." And she goes, "What's that?" And I go, "Well, it's like their symbol." She goes, "I've never seen this before." Oh, well, it's not very popular
because it's a scam.
No, it's like their little icon. It's like their little it's like this little upside down V thing or arrowhead.
Did you listen to the fun fact with Jeff? Gene Roddenberry originally created these pins, Dave, so he can make extra money.
So he's very Ferengi? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Ferengi.
That's why I think it's hilarious that Quark is the one mentioning that he's selling the Edict pins.
Yeah.
Okay. Rule of acquisition number 102 is stated in this episode. Do you guys remember it?
It was that. Oh yeah, I think I may have wrote it down. It was no, only certain bugs. No, Frank. No, that wasn't it. It says nature decays, latinum lasts,
but latinum lasts forever. That's correct. We didn't even mention, guys. We haven't this is the thing that this show does so well. But what about that whole moment at the beginning of the episode that we have with Morn and Quark, where Quark's like, "You need to talk to me more. You don't open up to me enough." And then I think Cisco comes or whatever. And he's like, "I'll just talk to you in a second," right when he's about to talk.
Yeah.
They have all these great moments with Morn. But Morn speaks in the German version of this episode. Just before the intro, when Quark walked away, Morn mutters, "Dann nicht," roughly meaning "so much for that." In the Spanish and Italian versions, he sighs all three at the same point.
Wait, I don't understand. Why does he speak in these other languages but not in English?
I don't know. I think they were like, they have to make this make sense for the Germans and the Italians and the Spanish.
No, they don't.
It's like adding lines overdubbing Silent Bob. Jem'Hadar, a third Talaka Talan, tells Kira that the
Talan.
Oh, I tried.
Say his cool name.
How do you say it?
Talon.
Talon. How did I say it?
Is it like Talon?
Talon's
It was
good.
like you said it like lamely. It was
Well-
you're like Talon. And I'm like, no, it's Talon.
Goddamn brothers.
Talon tells Kira that the Gamma Quadrant colony of New Bajor has been obliterated by the Dominion. Though never shown on screen, New Bajor was previously referenced in Crossover, as the episode begins with Kira Bashir returning from helping to set up a medical facility there. It was only in existence a few months before being destroyed by the Dominion, and its inhabitants slaughtered or captured. So I guess, that mission was really all for naught.
Yeah, super pointless.
And even going to the Mirror Universe kind of sucked too for them. So, I mean, all around that episode kind of sucked for Kira. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the final Deep Space Nine episode with Michael Piller as a writing supervisor. Dave, this is the end of the TNG Deep Space Nine era.
Where does Michael Piller go after this? I don't understand.
He's not a writing, so he's probably just a producer. He's not involved with supervising the writing after this.
Is that okay? But the show gets better after this.
That's my point. That's my point.
Why? Because he gets involved with the movies and stuff, or does he?
And I also think, he gets involved with the movies, and I also think that he was more of a TNG guy. I think he was more in love with those characters, and I don't think the D69 characters were really his babies. Even though he helped.
No, I don't know who. I guess they were Iris, because even though he's not considered a creator of the show,
but like who created like the Cisco character? I'm guessing it was
apparently it was Berman and Piller, but and then Iris Stephen Bear was like assigned to the show or something. Right. I'm not really clear on how that started.
But if you watch that What We Left Behind documentary, he really seems like the lead on the show. Like, it seems like they consider him maybe not the creator, but the lead on the show.
Yes.
Like,
he didn't. I guess he didn't create the initial concept or whatever. So there's probably like even union rules about he can't be the creator, but he's the showrunner.
Yeah, he was the showrunner, and like Rick Berman was kind of like the exec producer. Like he was, whereas before that, before this episode, Michael Piller was very heavily involved with the writing team, I think. But he was, I think, probably going back and forth between TNG and this show would be my guess. So
Michael Piller is like Rick Berman's second in command, basically.
And was a huge part of their writing, and especially with TNG, and I think that's why he was used to create the next show. But then I think something happened with Michael Piller. Maybe he was just more interested in them to go do the movies, and he just liked the TNG characters more. But he was never, I think, fleshing these characters out in the 2 seasons that we've watched. I mean, we just talked about how we haven't had a Cisco episode in like 10 episodes. Something's wrong here. And I think it's that there was no direction, I think, with the writing until like this episode happens,
Right. But I also think that that like Michael Piller is the one who gets Ronald D. Moore to come to this show.
Yeah.
Right. As a writer in season 3. And he kind of almost, you could say he almost gives up his chair for Ronald D. Moore to come here to Deep Space Nine. And Ronald D. Moore is like, I think maybe one of the most influential writers in this show. And he won't even show up. He's not even here yet.
No, but yeah, and I'm not saying Michael Piller didn't do good things. I'm just saying, like, I think Ira Stephen Bear was the guy that had the right direction of where to take the show, and I don't think Michael Piller knew how to do that with this show.
No, I don't think he did. No, I think he was a good TNG writer for sure. I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. TNG's a great show, and he was a great writer
at doing that.
He
not in doing Deep Space Nine
or Deep Space Nine.
Like, and even like we could go through his Deep Space Nine, writing credits, but none of them are, stand out. I don't think, as far as like the TNG ones do. Like he did the Dogs. Because it credits him on everything, so it's hard to figure out exactly what he wrote. But anyway. Although Cisco denied Quark's request for posting advertisement on the station monitors, Quark would do it anyway without permission 2 years later in the quickening. So,
Go to Quark's, get like I can't
but
remember.
once again, an Easter egg that they bring back.
Yeah.
Sure.
Molly Hagan plays Eris, the first Vorta seen in this series. I don't know.
She's not. They don't bring her back. I think for some reasons.
Oh yeah, Molly Hagan.
We're good at the end. Her line at the end, right? Like where she goes, "You have no idea what's begun here," right? Before she like beams away.
Mhm.
I always thought because I used to have like a Star Trek game for Wii. We're going on a little bit of a tangent here, Jeff. And so when you were like the Dominion, like if you were like there was a Dominion game and like you could be the Romulans or the Klingons and they would all say things. So when you were the Klingons, it would go like for glory, for honor, right? And when you were the Dominion, you were attacking, it would go, "You have no idea what's begun here," which is referencing the line from this episode. I'm like, was this like the big line? Because I didn't see the episode at the time. Maybe this question really is for Kevin. Did that resonate with you, Eris, and how she delivered that?
No. And it still doesn't. It's a silly line for that. Like it works in this episode, but it's not something you're going to. It's not like glory to you and your house.
It's not like the signature Dominion phrase. That would be what is the signature Dominion phrase? It's
it's the what the Jem'Hadar say. Life is victory, and victory is life.
Victory is life.
Yeah.
Victory is life. Yeah.
Yeah. So it should have been that on your little toy there, Dave, but it wasn't because they probably didn't have that yet.
My toy?
Or wasn't it? I thought wasn't there a recording of the Dominion?
Oh, you mean like in the game? Yes.
Oh, it was a game. Sorry. Anyway, Michael Jace was created as first officer, but his character received a name when it appeared in the official Star Trek customizable card game, Dave, which you used to have. I remember you collected.
It's not canon.
Well, his name is Jace Michaels. Okay, a slight modification in the actor's name, Michael Jace. It was clever.
Memory Alpha doesn't recognize it.
Why you got to poo on Jace Michaels?
The community is not.
Joe Biden's taking all the lines.
No, he's credited as first officer, USS Odyssey first officer. Jace Michaels, that's apocryphal, that is mythical. They'll have to establish that on screen somehow.
I think his name is Jace Michaels. Okay, the actor who portrayed Captain Keogh, or Joe Biden, his name is Alan Oppenheimer. Was seen previously in The Next Generation, The Rightful Heir, as Koroth, the Klingon chief cleric of the Boreth. And he has also portrayed numerous characters on various programs made by Filmation Studios, which also produced Star Trek, the animated series.
So he's played many unmemorable Star Trek characters before?
You don't remember Koroth from The Rightful Heir?
Not really.
No. Okay. The working title for this episode was The Dominion.
Okay.
The episode really only features one Jem'Hadar.
Yeah.
person.
Well, as long as there's no voting machines going on, I think the Dominion do it all right. Okay.
I don't know what it has to do. We got Dominion, we got Biden, we got.
It's all coming together, Dave. This is
together.
the key. It's an episode from 26 years ago that will tell us everything.
Dominion's going to destroy Biden.
Unless you've got a few billion in the bank, you be careful what you say.
Oh, exactly. True.
The algorithm, Jeff.
The algorithm. That we will be deplatformed. I was talking about the Dominion of the Star Trek. Not nothing else. I also is that the same, the company as that sponsors the curling, Dave, or is that a different Dominion?
That's a very different Dominion.
There's so many Dominions.
Well, it's a like the Dominion of Canada. That's the name of our country, officially. Right? Like we're
the Dominion.
We're the Dominion of Canada.
We are the Dominion. Yes,
that's the official name of our country.
Maybe the Dominion is a big metaphor for Canada. Because Canada is founded by the English, the French, and the natives. So you got, the natives are like the founders. You got the Vorta are the French, and the Jem'Hadar are the English.
Interesting metaphor. I'll have to think about that.
All right. According to sorry.
I'm not sure the natives are the founders. I don't think that's quite analogous.
It was the best they could do. They definitely not the Jem'Hadar.
They forgot to give the Jem'Hadar the Ketracel White, and well, things didn't turn out so good.
Maybe they are maybe you're right. Maybe they are the Jem'Hadar. According to writer Robert Hewitt Wolf, the Dominion knew about the Federation long before the discovery of the Bajoran wormhole and had plans to deal with it when the time came. However, the Dominion did not expect contact with the Alpha Quadrant for another 200 years, which is explained in The Search, Part 2. With the wormhole providing immediate access between the Alpha and Gamma Quadrants, Wolf says the Dominion's plans for the Federation were disrupted, which explains why it chose to observe and gather information until the end of the second season.
I'll accept that.
I don't. I think that's like kind of what you're saying, Dave. It's explaining later on.
I like that. You didn't like that. I like that.
Well, no, Kevin didn't like it.
No, I don't really like that.
I don't really care.
Sometimes I like that. Sometimes I think it's cheesy. Sometimes
Right.
I just
Depends how well they do it.
Yeah,
If they do it really,
do it
if they do
well.
it, you can do it badly or you can do it well.
yeah.
Like when they showed how the Defiant ended up in the mirror universe with Enterprise and Archer and all that. That was interesting, right? To kind of explain
Yeah.
and tie
Yes.
that all together,
Yes.
right? But sometimes it can be really dumb. Like Discovery does it sometimes really badly, especially when
Yeah.
they talk about Spock.
Okay. Ira Stephen Bear admits that mistakes were made in the process of defining the personality and nature of the Vorta. This is most evident in the lack of telekinetic powers among later Vorta characters and the fact that Eris did nothing to acknowledge Odo as a founder, which I disagree. I think there was a little thing there. Anyway, as the idea of the founders being changelings was not conceived yet. So I don't know about that. I think they might have known.
Well, even if they did know, because the founders know Odo's on the station, right?
Yes.
So it's plausible that Eris would have been briefed on that.
Yeah, it's possible. Or she might not have known. Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe not. Like it wouldn't change the story either way.
No. Reportedly, a number of fans became nervous when they saw the trailer for this episode, which featured a shot of the Odyssey exploding. Really? They had that in the trailer? Which some thought was to be the destruction of the Enterprise D, since this episode aired weeks after the conclusion of Next Gen. The choice to make the Odyssey a Galaxy-class starship was to demonstrate that Jem'Hadar could have destroyed the Enterprise had the ship appeared in the episode, and to make the Dominion threat all the more terrifying.
I think the reason for putting it in the trailer was to make people watch this
Yeah.
episode.
Get viewers.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Bring those Star Trek, those TNG fans back to Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And they might have been successful. This may have been like a Hail Mary thing that really paid off for them.
Yeah. The Odyssey was the third Galaxy-class starship destroyed on screen, following the USS Yamamoto.
Yamato.
Oh, I like saying Yamamoto.
Yamamoto?
Yamamoto.
That seems like too many syllables.
It is. And the USS Enterprise D, which had been destroyed and then restored by resetting the timeline several times during the run of the Next Generation.
Kelsey Grammer kept blowing them up.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, Kelsey Grammer. Eris describes how Dominion forces overran Vorta defenses, knocking out communications, executing leaders, and how Eris's own mother was an outspoken opponent of the Dominion. But this was likely a ruse to gain the trust of Sisko and Quark, since it is later established in canon that the Vorta are administrators within the Dominion and are all clones, the product of genetic enhancement by the founders as a gift when the primitive Vorta, who were tree dwellers similar to lemurs at the time, sheltered founder 10,000 years in the past.
Yep.
They were like lemurs?
Well, that's what Weyoun says in one episode. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think most of what Weyoun says is kind of whatever.
Right. He's a little poetic license. When Quark and Sisko are taken prisoner by the Jem'Hadar, their comm badges are taken. Without the help of the comm badges built-in universal translator, they shouldn't have been able to communicate with the female Vorta. However, the later episode Little Green Men suggests that the universal translators are implanted inside people's heads.
Yeah.
Right. Especially definitely in Quark's head.
Why definitely in Quark's head?
Because he's the one in that episode shown that he has to have it reset because it's in his head, right?
So not if if non-Federation people need to understand things, they don't wear comm badges. They have to have it implanted, right? Quark doesn't wear a comm badge, so he has
Yeah,
something implanted.
I don't think they never had shown that without a comm badge you can't understand people. What other episode did they ever do that?
Never.
No.
Yeah. Okay, and that's it. That's all I got for fun facts with Jeff. Double F with Jeff.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Can you get a rating song?
No, I'll have to work on that. It's no Double F with Jeff jingle.
All right. Well then, let's
Ratings
rate
are
this.
here, baby.
Ratings.
You better make a song.
I'm gonna make a song. Well, I can always hop on the kazoo.
Oh. Then I win.
Yeah.
Something worse than being a reporter.
Okay, here we go. Jeff.
I prefer the kazoo.
Here we go. Okay, here. Jeff, you want to give this a rating?
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an 8.7.
8.7. Ashley, can you go next?
9.
Oh, Steven.
9.
We're the tag team couple.
I guess.
Kevin,
Also 9.
You're a tag team. Also 9.
That's a tag team score of 18.
But an average of 9.
Right.
18 out of 10.
Loved it.
Okay. I'm asking Jaemeel for his rating right now. That's why I'm kind of seem distracted.
I guess he never got his computer back up and running.
He said currently have a 16 meg download. Unless this change, I'm not gonna make it tonight. He's giving an 8.2. Okay. And I'm probably like, because this episode is so distinct, I think I can't go lower than 9, but I don't think I would go anything above it either. So anyway,
I think there's a lot of meat on the bone in this episode.
Yeah, there is.
Everything. Humor and tension.
Just
and
no Garrick, unfortunately.
Yeah.
No Garrick, yeah. No Garrick. Very little Bashir. I mean, Bashir literally just sits in a chair and kind of stares out the window.
Well, that's his best work. That's when he's doing.
That's when the magic happens, baby.
When it happens. So anyway, that's an average of 8.8 for this episode tonight between the 5 of us. It has an 8.5 on IMDb. That gives it a combined average of 8.6. So not the best episode of this season, but one of the best for us, tied with like Blood Oath at 8.8.
Strong finish.
Strong finish. You know, I think 9.4 for Crossover, which was a few weeks ago, and 9.5 for Duet in season 1 are among our top episodes all year, or all 2 years. But that's the end of season 2, Jeff.
That's it. We're on. Finally, we've made it through the wormhole, and we get to watch really good episodes back to back most of the time.
The average for season 2 was 6.4.
What was season 1?
The average for season 1 was 6.5.
I predict 7 for season 3.
We're going up to 7.
And then I think it's uphill. It's until season 7. It's up from there.
Yeah, season 7 will go down.
Yeah.
And then we're going to look at it as a graph, and we're going to see how things progressed over linear time. I think that's going to be my favorite thing, to see how we liked certain things with the show as time went on. Okay, so that's the ratings. The end of season 2, and get that fixed. And yeah, here we come. Season 3, The Search.
Yep, season 3.
New uniforms, new hairdos, new origins.
Yeah, lot the new ship. We have the Defiant coming.
Defiant, the new ship, a new set.
Yep.
Series of sets.
Because TNG didn't need their sets anymore, or where did they build that set? Isn't Voyager the old TNG set?
Voyager's the old TNG. They must have just built even more sets for the Defiant. I don't really know. I would love to have been able to see those studios or those sets when they existed.
Yeah,
Know what that was like. You get some glimpses, some old footage from that era.
like I wonder like what it costed the studio to like build the Defiant set. You know,
It
cannot
a lot.
yeah, it could not have been.
I think the bridge alone is like a very expensive thing to build. Even if it like the Defiant's kind of a modest looking bridge, it's not very. Exciting.
I have a question. Do you think that all of the runabout scenes were shot in the same set? So, because we have three,
Yes.
we have three.
Probably,
We have three different runabouts running around. We have Odo and Dax, we have Bashir and Kira, and we have the Cisco, Jake, Nog. So are they all shot in that'd be crazy, right? Like
I think it's the fact that we have the Odyssey here is kind of a distraction because it like the fact that these three runabouts are so who cares? Like you have these three dinky runabouts, and now you've just created this massive villain empire, unstoppable force, and this is what you're gonna fight them with.
Yeah, like there was no way they could come back to season 3 and be like with runabouts, and we're gonna take you on with our runabouts, Jake.
Right. Right, exactly. Like I like the idea of different kinds of ships, in this world, this universe that they've created, but that the threat and what this particular crew needs is more than that. And they had to really fight. Like the story is, Ira Stephen Bear had to fight to create the Defiant after this, right? And it changed the show forever. And because that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Because season 3 is when it gets good.
And the Defiant is also the ship that like allows them to get more into the war narratives, because without that they literally are just going on camping trips on the Rio Grande or like on the Yangtze or whatever runabout they're on, like Kevin said, and they really don't do this again until Cisco decides to build a sailing ship. And we don't really get this Cisco again until then. Which is a good episode, but can you imagine?
I love all the Cisco goes crazy episodes.
what like even the moment tonight in the episode where like you guys mentioned it, where the Vort is like, "Hey, can we get rid of Quark or whatever?" And he, like that look on his face where he's like, "No, we never would have escaped if it weren't for him." Like he's got this like glee on his face.
He's awoke. He's woke now. He's like, you're right, Ferengis do have value.
I think during the episode he realized that that Quark had a point, that he did treat him a little unfairly.
Yeah, and
he was changing his ways and his opinions, and that's fine.
And and then maybe one day Quark will get to sell his merchandise on the screens, and it was all a long con. I mean, it really is. The only reason Quark is on this planet is to convince Cisco to allow him to sell things,
Yeah.
And also to kind of like make sure his
no, he doesn't care.
It's all about currying favor with the ships or with the station commander.
I think it's mostly about that. I think it's only about that.
Like 99 to 1%, Dave.
Okay. 99 to 1%.
He doesn't care if Nog, he's with Cisco. What, he's gonna protect Nog?
Why do you think he gives him all these speeches about
protect Cisco?
Why do you think he gives Cisco all these speeches? That's not going to help him seal the deal. He does that because he's afraid. He's afraid that his nephew's going to hate him. That he's going to hate his culture because these Federation values are going to change him. It's very analogous to what we're dealing with in a lot of today's issues. I think it is still fitting. That you learn something, you can change. Anyway, that's it.
All right.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely some metaphors to a lot of different things with the Ferengi and the Federation, what they're talking about in this episode. But yeah, at the same time, I think this episode spoke for itself, and we all liked it. We all gave it a pretty high score. Only Jaemeel with the low ball, but still a good
He
score.
gave it an 8.2, and he wasn't really, he didn't get the benefit of hearing our ratings, so he was.
No, we might have talked him up a bit. We might have talked him up.
Okay, well, that's it, right, Jeff?
Yeah, that's it. Dave, do we have anything else coming up on our mini?
Yeah, we do, Jeff. Yeah, tomorrow night we'll be here at 8:00 for TED Trek with our dad, Ted, talking about our original series episode, as we do every Wednesday, as we've been knocking them all off. This will be the 45th episode we're doing of the original series of the 79. So there's a finite
Dave,
number.
They don't, when we watched the show back in 1994, it was over, and then we never thought about it again. That's what
we did.
That's what Kevin did.
No, he thought about it again. He knew it was good. He was going to see reruns. Dad didn't believe that reruns would happen or something, or that something. I don't know. Anyway, check that out on Wednesdays. We're doing the Changeling this week. With the Nomad or whatever, like the not the Odo changeling.
Yes.
Not the founders of the Dominion changelings. The first, but the other use of the word changeling. And then on Saturday night, Jeff, our next installment of Star Trek Radio Theater, as we're going to be doing an episode from season 2 of Star Trek DS9 that was the highest rated episode. Next to Duet in the highest rated episode of season 2 for us in our panel in this podcast, as we'll be doing crossover as we continue our Mirror Universe dark version theme as we continue the season 2 here, doing the first Mirror Universe episode of Deep Space Nine with Jane playing, because so the character of Kira Nerys, or like the major Kira Nerys and her mirror counterpart, there's just too much dialogue, so we had to split it up into Jane and Jessica to play the two respective versions. I think it's going to be great. Jeff, you're playing Bashir for the first time, I think, since Move Along Home, right?
Oh, I think I might be, yes.
Yes. And this episode starts off with Bashir being incredibly annoying to Kira in the runabout. So I think this will be a great scene. Kevin's gonna be playing both versions of Miles O'Brien. The main version of Miles O'Brien is barely in the episode.
Suffering O'Brien and more Suffering O'Brien.
Yeah, this O'Brien suffers even more than the other one. You're playing both. I'll be playing 2 versions of Cisco as well. And then we got Michael Chan playing Gull Elam Garrick, and Supervisor Odo, the mirror versions of Garrick and Odo, as well as Mott playing the mirror Quark and mirror Klingons and Terrans, and Ashley's playing Warrior Talok, as well as Jedzia Dax, Terran Theta Slave, and the Bajoran musician, as well as our narrator. So check that out on Saturday night. And then Super Mater Brothers Podcasting, which will be coming back in March for Big Brother Canada, whenever they put out their release date, if the show even happens. And then also Trivial Debates, where we have our monthly arguments about TV, movies, sports, and more. Jeff, take us away.
Is that it? Is that what we did? When is the next Trivial Debates?
It'll be at the end of February, which is actually coming up very fast. So it will be on the 28th.
And who's hosting? What's going on?
I don't know if I have a host yet. I don't know if I have anybody confirmed yet. So why are you putting your hand up?
I don't know. I'll do it if I'm around. Yeah. I'm not going.
All right. Well, hey, let's start figuring out Trivial Debates for the 28th and who's going to be on that one. So yes, but at the end, last Sunday of every month, we do Trivial Debates. Jeff, take us away.
Okay. Well, for all of us here at Deep Space 9 and 9ish, we thank you for joining us, and we just want to impart unto you the motto of this show: live long and podcast.